I'm not coming down. I never liked it on the ground. I'm not coming down. I want to go higher, higher, higher than that.
Hey, this is Rebecca Fleetwood Hession, host of the Badass Women's Council podcast, and I am super glad that you're here. Even though my voice is a little raspy today, I decided to go ahead with the recording of this because perfection does not fuel connection. So, less than perfect, don't care. Moving forward. And it was just too important to get this episode out as quickly as possible with Cari Hahn, because Carrie's story has so much to teach us all that I couldn't hold it up another day, another week. So I want you to hear about Carrie's journey from the diagnosis of breast cancer through today. And there is so much for us all to learn from this. She is a bright light, which is a perfect thing for her to be because she now has a candle company. And she's funny and just, okay, no more introduction. Here we go. Hey, Carrie, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you're here. So we are having you on the podcast specifically in October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month because we want to hear about your story, which I think is important for everyone. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a funny on a breast cancer awareness story.
Sure.
One of my favorite things that you said to me this morning is you have a candle company that we're going to talk about, Karma Candles.
Absolutely.
Super cool. And they smell amazing because you brought some here today. And you have a candle company and your husband's a firefighter, and that's hysterical.
It's pretty ironic. So he has been an Indianapolis firefighter for 20 years. Yes.
And so does he go into the training sessions? Because I know that's a big part of what firefighting does, and say, hey, like, don't have burning candles in your house. Is that part of what he teaches people?
Probably. And I will tell you, there have been instances, because I'm always test burning candles, the scents and the wicks. There might have been a time or two where a candle was left on overnight. Which again, my company's called Karma Candles, so I just thought, good karma.
Good karma.
Didn't burn the house down.
Yay!
Good karma. And
Thank you, Lord.
if something goes awry, there's a firefighter here.
Oh, see, I just had to start with some levity because your personality is bigger than life, and you are taking a really shitty experience and turning it into the best possible scenario that you can for you and others.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start this episode with that levity to share that with people because you're a bright light.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Pardon the pun on the bright light with the candle too.
That's when I send candles, I tell people I want to be the light and love. That's what I am.
And you are. I love this. So tell us a little bit about your story and the diagnosis, and then we'll get into the really great work that you're doing now as a result.
So I was 40 years old when I was diagnosed. So it's been 2.5 years since I finished treatment. And I had a full physical, which included a breast exam in December. And everything was fine. In March, I just happened to be sitting at my computer. I was doing some office work for my husband's business, went and itched, and I felt something that didn't belong there. And so, of course, I'm like, what is that? So then I went upstairs and I kind of looked at it and thought, what on earth is this? And I could kind of see something actually. Yeah. And so then I said, hey, to my husband, will you come up and look at my boob? And he was
like, yes.
He's like, yes.
I've been waiting all day for you to ask me that.
I am there. Thank you. And he's running. So he came up and I said, what is this? He's a firefighter. So I just think he's got a medical degree. Clearly he's a doctor. I don't know. So he came upstairs and he's like, I don't know what that is, but I know that shouldn't be there. And I said, okay. And so I remember the next day I called, and because I had the order for the mammogram since I was 4, I just hadn't done it yet. Oh. So, because again, I had no family history. I wasn't concerned about this. Right. So it wasn't important to me. And I thought that only people who had history of breast cancer got cancer.
And good for you that you called the next day, because I know some people, their story is that they were afraid to call and made it much harder, much worse.
So I called the next day, and then of course they're like, oh no, sorry, this is now going to be diagnostic. So you need to actually go back to your doctor and get another order, but we'll get you in quicker. So I just so happened to be able to get into her the next day. Well, again, she was the one who did my breast exam in December. So she's like, that definitely wasn't there. So this is March. So that starts then. I have the mammogram. I have an ultrasound. At the ultrasound, they said the doctor will come in if they think there's a problem. He comes in the room, and I'm thinking, oh, you've got to be kidding me. He walks in the room, and he said, well, he referred to it as a lesion. He said, do you have any questions? And I said, no, because I wanted to leave. Immediately, I get in the car and I Google, lesion is a tumor.
Instead of asking him.
I didn't want to know.
Aren't we just interesting human beings? I totally get it. I would have done the same thing.
I wanted to flee and get out of the situation. And so then I have the order for the ultrasound. And I remember I was fearful, but I also wasn't, because I'm thinking there's no way. I have no family history. Like, this is not going to happen to me. And I called to try to cancel, actually, the biopsy. And one of the nurses got on the phone and she said, Carrie, I was there the day you came in. She listed 4 reasons. She said the blood flow, the shape, the size. There was another reason. And she said, we really need you to come in sooner than later. She said, you don't have to come in. We can push it back. But I think it's important you come in. And I remember.
Praise God for that nurse.
I remember at that moment, I got off the phone and I cried. And I thought, this might change my life. Like, this could be cancer. And I kept it out of my mind, went in, got the biopsy on a Wednesday. That Thursday, we had an event for a friend that had lost his battle with cancer. He was diagnosed with metastatic. He was a triathlete, firefighter, diagnosed with metastatic cancer, his initial diagnosis. So we went to an event for him, and which was devastating, because I am waiting on results. It's just, it was very difficult. It was the entire evening. Well, I had my ringer off that night because I'm at an event. So the next morning I'm at work on a Friday. I get a phone call. My doctor leaves a voicemail. I miss it because my ringer's off. And I'll never forget. I'm trying to, just assess her voice. Is it cancer? Is it not cancer? Call her back. I have to leave a voicemail. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So the next hour is the longest hour of my life. And she finally calls and she says, Carrie, can we schedule a time for you to come in the office? And I said, I've got a private office. I said, let me just go to my office. And I kept thinking, she's just going to tell me it's a tumor. It's okay. It's a tumor, but it's not cancer. And I went into my office and she said, Carrie, there's never an easy way to say it, but it is, you do have cancer. And I said, am I going to die? And she said, no. And I said, am I going to lose my hair? And she said, I don't know that. And I said, okay. And she said, do you have any other questions? And I said, I can't think of anything else right now. And I said, but would you do me a favor? Would you call Matt? Because I just need a moment. And so this is the best part. She calls Matt. He's on the back of a fire engine on a run. So again, like it's hilarious because none of us even really know what's going on at this point. We know I have cancer. But I have to tell you, so this was a Friday afternoon. So Matt comes home. I remember leaving work. I got it together. I went home. Matt met me. And at this point, too, we called my parents. My dad comes in the driveway. He's crying, I mean, it was pretty terrible. It's just shocking. And then I remember Matt and I kind of get a game plan together that we're going to tell the twins. The twins were 13 at the time. So we end up telling the twins when they get home from school. And they go, okay. They said, well, can we sleep over at Summers? So here we are, like, thinking they're going to be devastated. And they were just like, whatever. But
Or it's their way of going to the car to Google what it is and get away from it too, right?
And the big thing that I said to them is I said, I'm not going to die. And I said, please understand, whatever we know, whatever we hear, we will keep you informed. And if you hear people talking about that mom's going to die at school or whatever, you come to me. I will always give you truthful information. Don't get secondhand information from anyone else about someone else's mother that's passed away. And so that was kind of the deal, is that I told them I would always be honest with them about it. But that weekend, I have to tell you that I was diagnosed. It was like the best weekend ever. We still didn't have everything in yet because it takes a while for pathology. But we had so many friends and family. Like, it was just like this sea of people that came in all weekend. And I remember just sitting on my back deck most of the weekend with friends coming through with Prosecco and drinking, and just friends I hadn't seen in 15 years stopping by and popping in because Matt was told at the fire station, I mean, the news traveled quickly. So we're like, we have to, I mean, there's 900 firefighters. So that's where we thought, we're just going to put it on Facebook. You know, it's cancer. I'm not like, everything's going to be okay. We'll keep you posted. So it was really, it was kind of a fabulous, fun weekend, which is so weird to say that, but it was almost kind of like attending my own funeral. And you really realize how loved I was. And it so made that weekend just really bearable, I guess.
That is such an important place to pause and process this.
Yeah.
Because I heard recently that breast cancer survival is dramatically improved when the person has significant community.
Yeah.
Like, they've actually studied it. And,
Yes.
and there's data to support that when you have a strong, supportive community, you increase your chance of survival.
Yes.
So point number one, you looked around and said, I got people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had people.
Which is an important thing for all of us listening to take a look at that and say, build your community now.
Right.
Because we never know when we're going to need each other.
And I will tell you, even people coming to me saying, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. That's okay. I don't know what to say or do.
Isn't that what people have told me? That's what they preferred people to say rather than saying something really weird and dumb.
And I'd be like, this is super awkward, but also, you know, this, I get it. It's a super awkward because you don't know what to say and do. But I also too, when pretty much every female came over, I'm like, feel my boob. I need you to feel it. I want you to feel what this feels like.
So you know what you're
I want you to know, you know.
Gosh,
and
beautiful.
I can remember, you know, one time being in a car with some girlfriends. There might have been some cocktail. No one was driving. Okay, just FYI, no one was driving.
Well, somebody was driving, but it was none of you.
No, yes. And I can remember, you know, they're all for like feeling it because I'm like, I need you to feel it. You know, I want you to understand what it feels like because it was very distinctive what it felt like. It was like an oval shape. So that was part of how they knew it's typically cancer is.
It's not
It's
symmetrical.
irregular.
It's irregular.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just kind of felt like a little bit tacky or something. I don't know. I mean, it felt kind of grape-like.
When you say tacky, describe that better.
Like it was almost like a little spongy when you would feel it.
Gotcha.
So, but it kind of felt like a grape, but a little bit spongy. And again, I don't know exactly how to describe that, but it was, and of course, I mean, I grew to know, especially as I'm waiting for all these tests, I mean, I would feel it and be like, is it still there? And it was still there. Well, again, so the crazy part, diagnosed or, you know, nothing feelable in December. It came out in June. It was stage 2 when it came out in June. That's how aggressive it was.
Wow.
So, and then during these, you know, it takes a long time to go through the diagnosis. It takes about truly a month before you get the complete diagnosis.
Which has to feel like years.
It's so crazy how time goes so slowly. Mm-hmm. And these tests usually would happen on a Friday. So, of course, they're going to make you wait until, you know, that next Wednesday. But then during the process of one of my MRIs, they found spots on the left side, 2 spots. So they had to biopsy those. Well, come to find out I had bilateral breast cancer. So
what's that?
So basically I had breast cancer on both sides. But my other side was considered DCIS. It's an encapsulated breast cancer. It hadn't gone anywhere, but it had to be obviously dealt with.
Yeah, right.
So yeah. So that's where I started. I had my surgery in June. Then I started chemo, and then I did 7 weeks of bilateral breast cancer radiation. And I remember, when you do your surgery, that's when they put your port in. Ports are very uncomfortable. It feels really tight in your neck. And, you just have this weird foreign object, but it makes chemo a lot easier. And I remember them telling me, when you start chemo, you're going to lose your hair 10 days from, starting chemo. And that was a really kind of crazy day, because I remember I was at work that day, ran my fingers through my hair, and just a clump of my long blonde hair came out. And
we as women have a special kinship with our hair. And I don't know, I'm sure if I researched it, there's history there. I'm going to make a note to do that. But it is a thing.
It's a thing.
Like, I'm getting so emotional just hearing you say that, which...
It wasn't a thing then, because I'm in survival mode, and I have to be. And I couldn't grieve it then, because I couldn't be in a place of grieving. I had to stay in a space of light. I had to stay in a space of, I've got to keep this positive. I've got to keep my body happy. I've got to keep my mind good. And so
that's important too. I want to pause there, because everything we talk about here at the Badass Women's Council is reflection and connection. So you've already hit on both of those. So the connection piece is make sure you've got people, make sure you've got a community. And now the reflection piece is, and reflection, if you research that word in general, it is about oftentimes reflecting light, but it also is about what we feel about ourselves, what we say to ourselves, how we reflect on our own situation has significant power and impact to our lives. Right.
And I will never, someone had given me a book called There's No Place Like Hope during this time. Fabulous book. I cannot remember the author, but she was, I believe it was breast with her, but just a great book as far as, really the initial step is the diagnosis, and regardless, even if you are stage 4, there is still hope. And something that I learned too, you're a survivor regardless. As long as I'm still alive, even if I have stage 4 cancer and I'm in hospice, you're still a survivor until you're not.
Oh, that's a great perspective. So you're a daily survivor.
I'm a daily survivor.
So you don't wait until you get the results that say you're cancer free.
Yep.
Every day you wake up and you say, I'm a survivor today.
I'm a survivor.
That's beautiful, Carrie.
Yeah. You have to be.
Yeah.
And you have to stay in the positive. And I'm not saying sometimes those negative thoughts would come in. And I remember during treatment, there were some bad days. Chemo is hard. It is hard. Anything that makes your hair fall out, it's hard. I mean, clearly there's something to it. And I remember when I wanted to have those hard, dark days and I needed to cry and I needed to just not feel good, I only allowed myself one day. And the next day I was like, that's fine. You can have today if you really need it. And I gave myself permission to have those bad days. But that next day, I got up, I got showered, I put some mascara on. Even when I was down to one eyelash, I put my mascara on. I'm like, hey girl, you're still kicking.
Survivor lash.
Yep. Hey. So, I gave myself, though, permission to feel it and grieve it if I needed to. But then I would try to move on the next day. And I'm like, you're going to go walk, you're going to do something, and you're going to fix your mind.
That's it. Like, that's everything.
It's everything.
And that's obviously a harsh reality that you're in.
Yes.
That's the same advice I give to people going through any hard moments in their lives.
Yes.
You can have, but give it finite time.
Right.
Give, whether it's an hour or a day or whatever. Right. And then the next moment you get up and you show up.
Right. And and again, being who I am and my personality, for every chemo, I had a new cute outfit.
I love it.
I was like, I'm going to treat myself.
Literally, I'm going to treat myself and then I'm going to treat myself.
Yeah. So I would have a new cute outfit. I walked in heels every time. I mean, I was like, I'm going to rock chemo to the best of my ability. And I did. And, was it hard? Absolutely. It was. So after my first chemo, my first chemo was pretty rough. They give you steroids, and that helps offset the effects of chemo, the nauseousness and all of that.
But steroids have their own issues.
They have so many issues. And so the other thing is I didn't get the cancer that, I was like, if I'm going to get cancer, like give me some sexy side effects. No, I mean, I put on like 15 pounds and I'm 5'2". That's not okay. So I'm, swollen, I'm bald. I'm like, this is not going well for me. Where are the sexy side effects? I still ask for those. I still ask my oncologist for those. But, it just, you don't feel good, when you're going through it, but you get through it. You do get through it. And I can remember, even being in chemo when I'd be in bed, I'd wake up and I'd have girlfriends in bed with me, and they got in the trenches with me. And they truly like that. I can remember, just waking up and I'd see someone in my bedroom and it just, it let me know I was loved and cared for. And it
which has healing powers on your body physically.
It was so healing.
It really does.
So, yeah.
I mean, that releases all kinds of great chemicals in your body that help you to heal.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. So if there's anything that I would want people to take away from this, 2 things already. 3. Let's go 3 things. One is the reflection in how you show up and what you tell yourself matters a lot.
Right.
And the connection matters to build your community now.
Right.
And to pay attention.
Right.
Check yourself.
Right.
If you feel something, go get tested. I mean, we've heard these messages a million times and there's never enough reinforcement of that.
Right. I think one of the coolest things I did for myself during this time is I was baptized during this time. Now I was baptized as a baby.
Yeah.
But I woke up one morning and we go to Northview Church. And
here in Carmel, Indiana, where we are.
And I remember just kind of getting online and I saw that it was baptisms that day. And, again, and it's a huge church. And, I was in my beanie at the time and I reached out to a friend whose husband is a pastor at Northview. And I said, I want to come up and get baptized. And I said, but can we please make sure Steve keeps my beanie on? I don't want to be bald in the dark. Like, I just don't. Like, I'm not ready to do that in public.
Yeah.
And so I remember, going, and it was such a last minute thing. And again, I had so many of my friends that showed up, even at the last minute, that were there, that were a part of it. And, Steve, sure enough, he made sure he kept my beanie on. And that was a really, really special moment for me. And, I think when you go through something hard, I learned so much to rely on God and to talk to God about it. And sometimes we had some hard talks and sometimes I was a little cussy. I'm not gonna lie and say I wasn't.
I have a t-shirt that says I love Jesus, but I cuss a little.
So someone gave me that when I was going through treatment.
I knew we were gonna be friends.
Because and actually when I finished treatment, one of my candles, because I used to be kind of known for some of my sassy candles, I have a cussy Christian candle. So which is super fun.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So let's segue to the candle business. Karma Candles is a outcome really of this. And there's a whole lot of stuff in between where you are now in your story or where you in telling the story and where you are sitting here today on the podcast. And some of that was even messy about the job and how they handled things. And we're not going to get into a lot of those details, but the message that I want us to share on the podcast is, I always say that we are not our jobs.
No.
We shouldn't put too much of our identity in our jobs. And as leaders and as companies, we have to remember the humanity of life first.
Yes.
Because you did not experience that during this really awful time.
In the beginning, I think most employers are pretty supportive, but I think as it goes on, it becomes an inconvenience. They don't kind of know what to do, I think, with people going through treatment or cancer survivors. And I also think I was, on their insurance. You cost them a lot of money, unfortunately. But yeah, when things went awry kind of with my job and I was not maybe treated as I felt someone should be treated, when you have an employer and I'm saying, I need to cut back and do a little less, and they then say, well, we're going to add to your job responsibilities. it's a little baffling, I guess.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of the modern day way of discrimination. But I remember calling my oncologist during this time, and they told me that, again, so this is 2016 and no, 2017 at this point. And they told me that 50% of their patients typically kind of end up in this kind of a predicament. Still in this day and age, with so many of us as young people getting cancer that are still working and in the workforce, in addition to dealing with cancer, survivorship, people are dealing with discrimination.
Yikes. I can't even make that work in my head and my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the messages I want to make sure we share, excuse me, is you are the epitome of a high achieving woman, right? That's who listens to this podcast. That's who we have on this podcast.
Yes.
And one of the messages you got from your doctors was go about your normal life as a means of survival kind of mechanisms.
Yes.
However,
yes,
when we are high achieving women
and we're told to continue to be high achieving, I'm going to.
Your normal was not what you should have been doing during this stage. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, when I was going through treatment, so again, I had surgery, I had chemo, and then I had daily radiation for 7 weeks, which is Monday through Friday. I only took 2.5 weeks of work off during all of that time. In total. I mean, some people take that off for a funeral. That was the amount of time I took off. It was insane. And I have a family at home. I have 13-year-old twins. I have a husband. It was too much.
What was do you think you took the message of go about your normal life at the time? How did you feel about it versus how you feel about it now?
So I remember kind of at the end of treatment saying to him, I wanted someone, and even when I kind of went to my employer and I said, I need to take a step back, I needed someone to grant me permission to tell me it was okay to stay in bed if I needed to.
Yeah.
That's what I really needed. I didn't need someone to tell me to go about my day, because I'll do it. And I'm going to do it so well. It's going to be unbelievable to you if you tell me to do it. And I did it. But what I did to myself through that. And the other thing is that because I stayed so busy, I didn't have time to even grieve any of the steps that I really went through. Like when my hair fell out, I did not grieve that. I remember I cried about a tear because that's all I allowed myself. But I remember, again, when things went really awry with my job, I started unpaid FMLA the same day we had that hard conversation there where they told me that basically I could return to my job and they were going to add to my duties. I remember going home, though. I called Matt on the way home and I said, I'm going to go home today and I'm going to grieve cancer. Don't call me. I'm not going to talk to anyone. And I remember going home and I literally was on my hands and knees and crying out and grieving. Like
pent up grief.
I was making the sounds that came out of my body. I mean, I've never heard anything like it. I mean, I can still vividly remember just sitting on that floor and grieving it. And I grieved it for a couple days. I grieved all of it. I grieved before cancer versus after cancer. I grieved, the fact that I might not make it through this. I grieved for my kids. I grieved for I grieved and I needed to do that. And I grieved what I'd been through and what I expected. And I had a couple of really hard days of grieving, but I so needed to have those days.
How do we reconcile those two messages in our heads and our hearts? The one is stay positive, believe in the future. And I know wholeheartedly that is helpful, and give yourself permission to rest more, to grieve appropriately. How would you talk about that to people?
I think that, again, I think when I was in it, I think I didn't want to feel it too. And I think that's why I stayed so busy. Because if I wasn't busy, I had to deal with what was happening, you know, and I was mad at my body. I'm like, she's trying to kill me, you know, in two ways. I mean,
Well, I always talk about the little bitch in our heads, but your little bitch was like,
yeah,
she was attacking.
She's attacking.
Yeah.
So, and I remember again, there were times that you wouldn't sleep through this. And there were times I didn't want to sleep because I was scared that if I slept, is that my body then resting? Is that going to grow cancer? I mean, just all these things that you
Stuff
think,
in your head, yeah.
you know, you sometimes there are those voices, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's learning to deal with those voices and learning to deal with that self, you know, talk, those negative, just those negative thoughts that pop in.
Absolutely.
And, but I think you could, and I also think too, I didn't want to let people down. And I think that was the biggest thing. And that's why I kept going, because I thought, I don't want to let my girls down. I want them to see, people are calling me a warrior. I don't know that I'm a warrior. I don't know what I am. I don't have a choice. Like, this is just what I have to do. Right. And I kept thinking, if I'm not a warrior today, I'm going to let people down. I don't want to let anyone down. So I'm just going to go be a warrior today. But you can still be a warrior, and you can still be all those amazing things people would tell me, and I still could have rested. And I should have rested. So, because I felt like I have to be doing this 24/7 or I'm not a warrior.
And isn't that an important message for all of us, even those not battling something as awful as cancer, but we're all in some sort of battle.
Right.
And to give ourselves permission to rest.
Right. Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. And we need to rest. And I will say about this point, so I'm just a couple months out of, you know, finishing the radiation. And, you know, and now it becomes more of, I see my oncologist at this point every quarter. And then doctors are starting to come out of the mix. And I remember calling a friend of mine. My mind is a mess. I'm exhausted. I don't quite know what's happened. And I'm processing, you know, the cancer and just what I thought my life should have been, what it is now. And he recommended, he's a young oncologist. He recommended I get on a yoga mat. And that was when so that day, again, being the person I am.
They told me what to do. I'm going to go do it.
They told me what to do. So guess what? I walk into the hot room, which is the Burkham style, whatever style yoga.
Okay, freeze.
Yeah.
Isn't that one, like, hot yoga really hard?
Hold on. This gets better.
Oh, for the love.
Because again, if you tell me to do it, I'm gonna rock it. I mean, that's just what I'm gonna do.
You're not doing it a little.
So I'm not doing a little. So I look up their class times. I walk into the hot room. It is, without me realizing, 120 degrees, I think. And it's an hour and a half class.
What the Sam hell?
Well, and you know what? I stayed up with most of it, and I loved it.
Of course you did.
Absolutely loved it, because for me, I envisioned finally letting go of all of just the shit. You
were sweating it out.
I was sweating it out. I was letting go of the toxins. I was letting go of the poisons. I was letting go of the negative self-talk. And I learned basically how to rebuild myself. And a lot of that has been me on a yoga mat, just, you know, letting go of what didn't serve me and bringing into my life what I did need, you know, and becoming my own hero and really rebuilding from the ground up.
That mindfulness of, I picture you picturing the toxins leaving your body and the sweating it out.
Yes.
Like there's a reason that athletes use visualization in their practices as well. So,
and believe me, I sweat it out that day. I mean, an hour and a half and 120 degree. It was, and I remember thinking, because my hair is, I mean, it's like a nub at this point, and I thought, thank goodness I don't have hair right now, because I was so flipping. So I've never been, my eyeballs were sweating. I mean, you name it, everything was sweaty. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I love that though.
Yes.
I love that a doctor recommended yoga as a mindful way to address this.
It has been one of the best things. I did after that too. I started seeing a Christian therapist so that I had someone that I could really go talk to about, and they call survivorship, it's a cliff. You know, they basically, I was so scared of survivorship because it doesn't come, none of it came with an instruction guide.
Right.
But at least when you're in treatment, you know that if anything comes up, they're going to find it. And then survivorship, they're like, okay, bye. You know, I remember my radiation oncologist, one of my nurses said, honey, go live your life. And I'm like, what's that mean? Like, what am I supposed to do now?
Because you have a new normal. You don't even know what that looks like.
And every ache and pain, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm dying, metastatic breast cancer. So every ache and pain scares you, and you don't even know what to do with yourself. And then you've got this free time you didn't have before. And that's when you really start to process it. And I think that's when a lot of people really start to struggle with what's happened, because when you're in treatment, there really is no time to process it.
You're just going through the motions of what you're being told to do next.
Yes.
And one of the stats that you shared with me that I didn't recognize or hadn't heard before was that 30%, say that.
So when you finish breast cancer treatment, regardless of your initial staging, 30% of us go on to develop stage 4 or metastatic breast cancer within the next decade, which there is no cure. And most people who get metastatic breast cancer, which means it metastasizes somewhere else in the body, like the bones, maybe the lungs, maybe the brain. If that does happen, you usually live 3 to 5 years.
So you leave treatment
yes.
as a survivor.
Yes.
But yet that knowing
yes.
that
it can come back at any time.
At any time. And now you don't have a quote unquote treatment plan. You're told to go back and live your life.
So there are treatment plans that basically include some really harsh drugs for the next decade. Now, I made a decision a year ago. I stopped those drugs. So it's kind of increased my statistics a little bit. And, I did a lot of soul searching when I decided to do that. And again, I think being a Christian, this is all out of my control anyway. God has a purpose and plan. So, drug isn't necessarily going to, I think the drugs, if people can do well on them, they do lower your chances. I have chosen to do more alternative medicines with, I have researched on my own things to help. So my breast cancer was hormone fed. So I'm doing things that get rid of my estrogen and progesterone naturally.
Oh, gotcha.
So, but the drugs are also like the tamoxifen is one they put you on. Your bones hurt. My bones hurt so bad. Everything hurt.
So your quality of life was so diminished.
I ended up in the hospital 2 times within a 6-month period because I truly couldn't walk. So I've never experienced back pain. The first time I went in, and of course I think, oh my gosh, my cancer's in my back. My back hurt so badly. Well, I had 5 degenerative discs and 2 herniated that time.
From taking the drugs?
Well, I think the drugs, and then I think just radiation. Radiation, I still have discoloration on my skin from radiation, still 2.5 years later.
Wow.
So, but the drugs they brought out some of those really bad side effects of the aches and the pains. And then also tamoxifen, it is a known human carcinogen.
Right.
So it can lead to other cancers like ovarian cancer. So, again, everyone has to make that determination. I think it's worth it to try the drugs because it does help. It increases your statistics. But for some people, they're just really hard to take.
And everybody's journey and everybody's story is different.
Right.
And you've got to make the choices that are best for you.
And I chose quality of life.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is I love yoga. Yoga and candles are my life. Like that's life right there. So, I didn't want to be on a treatment that made everything hurt and I couldn't go on a yoga mat.
You couldn't do one of the things that you loved that was helping you.
Yoga it's my place. I mean, I have another great friend that's a survivor, and we went last week to yoga, and it was so flipping hot that day. I think it was 110 degrees. Normally it's about 95 in the studio I go to now, and I go at least 3 times a week. But I remember looking at her, and she goes, I'm crying. And I go, I'm crying. And then our friend Julie, I go, is Julie crying? She goes, no, she's dying. I mean, it's my place. It's my place that I process a lot of things. Or if I have upcoming scans, it's just, I pray, I meditate, and I love my body for what it has been through, and the fact that it's not where it was. I mean, I have these ongoing aches and pains, but we
gratitude.
We did it. The gratitude that I have for it, for what it has been through, and the fact that it's recovering and it's healing, and and I'm so grateful for the place that I'm at now.
And all of us high achievers, let's just take a moment and remind ourselves that those moments of mindfulness and pause, whether it's yoga, whether it's meditation, whatever place where you can find that space,
yes,
is critical for our lives, preventatively, as well as healing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The other aspect of your story that I want to make sure we highlight today is you are masterful at taking the hard parts of your story and learning from them and turning them into good, which is, you've done it several times in your life, but specifically I want to talk about Karma Candles because this is an amazing movement and I've had a chance to smell the products and I'm in love. So tell us about how Karma Candles was born and what you're doing with it now.
Yeah. So when I just love candles, clearly. And when I was in treatment, I always, again, just for that mindfulness and that light. And there were times that for me during treatment, the darkness was scary sometimes. And you don't sleep a lot at night, because my hormones were going through stuff, my body's going through stuff. So I would have no problem falling asleep, but I have a problem staying asleep.
So the literal darkness was scary.
So the literal darkness, sometimes it's lonely, it's scary, it's isolating, it's cold. And I remember even in the middle of the night, I would sometimes light my candles, just so I had that light. And so when I finished treatment, and my daughters, again, 13, they love the candles from Anthropology that are super expensive. And so I remember finishing treatment around that time, and we were going to, Anthropology, buying their Volcano Capri Blue candles. And I remember thinking my degree was in art therapy. So,
we haven't. There's a whole nother podcast.
Oh, yeah. So my degree's in art therapy. And I thought, I bet I could make these candles. So I start YouTube.
We all go to YouTube.
Right. Why spend $28 on a candle when I can spend $1,000 and make the product myself? Make one candle for that. Why? That's silly. That's crazy talk. So I just start, and again, I didn't sleep at night. So when I was awake at night,
you were a little candle factory at night.
I started looking at vessels and I love to surround myself with just pretty things. Beautiful. I mean, I just do. And the other thing is I'm also making changes as far as what is in my environment. What is, what I'm burning in my environment, what I'm cleaning with, what I'm putting on my body. And I was fairly organic before and I was fairly clean before as far as all the products in my home. But again, after you've had cancer, you really want to be mindful of what is in your environment. So when I start researching what's in some of these candles, the paraffin, the toxins, all of that, I thought, I'm going to make a cleaner candle. And so that was how it started. And then it really became super therapeutic for me to do it. And it just, when I was in college, my favorite medium to work with, again, going to school for art therapy, was a potter's wheel. I love throwing clay pots.
I had a potter's wheel when I was a kid that I got for Christmas.
Loved it.
From the Sears and Roebuck
the feel,
store.
The clay. I mean, I loved everything about it.
I totally
loved
get
everything about it.
The smell even I loved.
Yes, and I grew up, the other thing is my grandfather back in the day was a graphic artist. He made his living hand drawing for the grocery ads back before you had computers and all of this.
Stop.
And so I remember growing up in his art studio and drawing and it was such a cool, fun. And then he was an artist. And so he was an artist on the side, but he made his living as which is the craziest thing when you think about we didn't have computers. And then my mother is an interior designer. My sister's an interior designer. And they both draw, they both do watercolors. So I come from a very creative family. But for me, just being in my space and researching how do I get really pretty candles. But when I first started making candles, I really kind of wanted them to be a little sassy.
Because you're a little sassy.
So they were things like shit show survivor. And, some days, depending on the day, I would cross out the survivor and I'm just like, nope, just a shit show today. Again, cussy Christian, sorry I was drunk. I'm just really least liked employee because, and there was a whole funny blog that I put out about, how dare you, take a maternity leave. You have a baby on Friday, you come back in by Monday. So again, I was trying to make light and use humor, for just funny things in life. And so that's kind of how I started, was just kind of being a little sassy. And the candles just continued to grow and grow. And then I was always donating to cancer foundations. And so I also became an ambassador for a breast cancer foundation. Well, one of the things, it was a gal who was 32. She passed away. It's the Megan S. Ott Foundation. So she passed away of metastatic breast cancer. She started this foundation. Well, before she passed away, she picked all the items that she wanted in her gift baskets for grant recipients. And one of those was a candle. So I love to donate my candles
that's beautiful.
To them. But when people were going through treatment, I just loved gifting candles to them. Reminding people, stay in the light. And, I have like a candle that's hope in a jar, cancer crusher, just things that, little phrases that kind of got me through it. And then I really started looking at this as, can this really be a real business? And I was also working for a cancer foundation part-time during this time, and it was a hobby, and I was growing the business. And I went to Matt in May of this year, and I just said, I don't know that I love the work we're doing. I love that we're raising money for a new infusion center. I love it, but I don't know that me being in a hospital part-time, I don't know that it's the best thing for me, because I'm not in remission, and being around it, it reminds me a lot.
Right.
Matt said, get whatever money you need. Do whatever you want.
Matt sounds like a good dude. There's a couple times I'm like, you did good with that one, huh?
Yeah. He's my biggest fan. I mean, he really is. And, and I remember thinking, can I have all your money then? No. It's just, but we did it. And so in May, I went full time with it, and it has just kind of grown from there. Of course, I met Nikki along the way. At
Nicole Blair Ware, Nikki Bush,
who has been amazing in my growth. And, she's a girl's girl, and she gave me a list of people to go see. And I picked up every one of those accounts, and it just continues to grow. And
she's one of the founding members of the Badass Women's Council. I just want to state that.
And quickly. I also, I use my candles for good. I give back. I do the right things. I want it to be about community. And I want to be that light for people who are going through stuff, because we're all suffering from something. We all are suffering from something. And, I can't tell you with the candles, the other day someone reached out to me, and she wanted to order a candle, and she told me in the message that she had stage 4 metastatic cancer. And I said, we kind of had a conversation about that. And so her next text to me said, is there any way that you could hold the candle until next week when I get paid? And I said, I'll make the gift to the donation. Can you let me bless you? And she said, no, I don't want to do that. My husband's waiting on a contract. And she said, I want to order Christmas candles. And I go, that's great. You can order Christmas candles. I go, but I'm going to bless you with this one.
Amen.
And it's my business. I can do whatever I want. I can give as many candles away but again, like, that broke my heart too. Here she is, she's fighting metastatic cancer. And I get it. Like, she may not have her job anymore. I mean, sometimes people have to do some really hard choices in the midst of all of this.
In the simple act that you could do of blessing her with a candle has huge benefits.
I have had people at events that have come up to me, and they've said to me that they're battling cancer, and I'm like, please just take a candle. Yeah. And they're like, I can't. I've had people cry. I'm like, it's a candle. It's a $38 candle, but it's the act of, I'm giving you. I'm giving you a candle, and it is your pilot light. Mm-hmm. And don't let anyone take that pilot light. Don't let anyone blow that light out. Yeah. There is hope. There's always hope. There's always hope.
I love that you're here. I wish we could keep doing this for like another hour. So will you come back and we'll talk about art and all the other beautiful things in life? You are, I'm going to just throw the pun back out there. You are a bright light.
Thank you.
I mean, God has absolutely, the candle business
God has blessed me, and it's my job to, God allowed me to get out of the pit, and it's my job to go back and get others out. It's my job.
Nothing else to be said.
Yeah.
You're a beautiful spirit.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And I'm not coming down.
I told you. Isn't she amazing? Oh my gosh. Go follow her on all the things. Instagram. Go buy a candle or 10. Buy candles for all of your friends for Christmas. Do it right now. She is just amazing. And I will tell you, oh my goodness, she brought candles for me and the folks from Rise and Thrive Indianapolis, and they are scrumptious. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here. As always, a reflection question for today is, are you giving yourself permission to rest? We heard it from Carrie. It's too important. We need to take time to rest. And please go to badasswomenscouncil.com and you can take the quiz to see how badass you are. And it'll give you some tips on how to increase your badassery. And if you would like to join the online community, you can do badasswomenscouncil.community. And there you can join other high achievers in your local area. We're all there hanging out. You should be there too. Make it a great day.
I'm not coming down. I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down.